Check 1, 2. Okay, I think there we go. Sorry about that. Hopefully you can hear me now. Welcome to Houdini Hangout. Yeah, let me just double check, make sure everything is good here. Yep. All right. Sorry about that. Yeah, my wife and I share this computer. So oftentimes things will get switched and I won't realize it until it's much too late. So my apologies. Anyways, yeah, so thank you so much for tuning in or watching after the fact or joining us tonight. I've been working on a little presentation for work, doing just doing a general presentation, Houdini presentation for a school, and I was looking through past releases and things like that, and just looking at some of the examples over the years of different features and things like that that have been added, and some of the tools and things like that. And I just got kind of an itch to let's mess around with some stuff. So I think Vellum is always a good thing for a lot of people because it's a pretty accessible thing. So I'm thinking we're going to work with some Vellum tonight. And yeah, so the plan is to just start screwing around with some stuff, see where we get, see what we can do. And yeah, we'll see where we head to here. But yeah, my standard disclaimer, as always, is if you are new to Houdini or if you've been using Houdini for many years, all are welcome to participate and join in with the conversation. Happy to have comments from anybody and everybody that might be out there. Whatever you might be, you might have a thought, might think I'm doing something not so great or smart. Yeah, I am not the definitive expert on Houdini. That is not me. In fact, I don't think there is anyone that is that, or very few people that are that. So, yeah, please don't feel silly chiming in if you've got a thought or a question. There are no stupid questions. Whatever you want to add to the conversation, it is welcome and encouraged. So with that in mind, I say let's get this thing on the road. Yeah, so I think what we're gonna do first is a little thing I was just screwing around with this afternoon, just playing around with, and just doing just a little vellum tearing thing with grains included and stuff like that, just maybe to demystify that a little bit. I feel like, if I've been doing too much vellum or whatever, please let me know. I know people really enjoy learning that, especially if you come from a more traditional, motion graphics background, perhaps. It feels pretty familiar, whether you come from cinema or maybe, After Effects. I don't know, that it just feels a little bit more point based and probably familiar for a lot of people. So, if you're watching and you're like, could you do this instead? Let's chat. I'd love to hear what you guys are working on. And as always, you can find information about the stream at I've got a calendar there at houdinihangout.com. And you can also join the Discord server there. So if you are interested in adding suggestions for topics, if you want to add, have any help or anything like that, or just general Houdini chat, be glad to talk there and kind of dive into whatever questions or thoughts you might have there as well. So. All right, great. Well, let's start playing around. We'll see where we get and see what we end up messing with. So, all right, cool. So first thing I'm going to do is let's do a geometry node here, and we'll just call this grain. We'll call this grain filled sphere. Okay, cool. So. In fact, that's not geo. It's going to be a sim. So let's do that. And let's go inside. Let's just do a basic sphere here. I am going to change this to be a polygon just because it gives us these triangles, feels a little bit more regularly chopped up here versus the polygon mesh, which are kind of these either very square or very elongated quads. So I'm going to just do polygon instead. This is always kind of a nice slider too, because you can just, type in a number here and get higher or lower resolution. So excuse me. Pardon my yawn. Excuse me. All right, so we've got a sphere. We're really doing it now, guys. All right, let's do transform. Just gonna move this up by, I don't know, let's say a meter, something like that. There that is. And so let's just think about what we're gonna do here. We're gonna take the bottom part of this sphere and we're gonna fill it up with grains, and we're also gonna cut this up. So we can do this a couple different ways. Obviously, there's a million ways to do everything in Houdini. So let's first think about maybe the grains. Let's try that first. So let's do a clip, and a clip will just cut our geometry at a specific plane. And so we can move this distance from origin. You can see here that will cut it from the bottom, or we can say primitives below the plane and it'll, keep those. So now we have these primitives below the plane. Maybe we'll do like 1.25. Yeah, let me just add in an 8 there. Yeah, maybe something like that's cool. Let's do a polyfill. Let's do triangles, and doesn't really need to be anything fancy, but that should work out just fine. Okay, so we've got our volume here. We're going to turn this into grain. So let's do Vellum grain, configure grain, excuse me. All right, so a couple things here. So I'm going to open the physical attributes because we're going to want that in a second. So let's create points from volume. So that's going to just make some nice big spheres here, which are a little ridiculous. So let's make that a little smaller. Yeah, that seems fine. Maybe we'll do 0.02. Cool. Okay, so we've got this really regular grid. Doesn't look so great. We can dither the surface, which basically just means that we're going to take this top surface here, basically the part that is like the top of it, basically, and we're gonna try to jitter that a little bit and make it not so perfectly smooth. It's a pretty quick operation, but it's really not kind of what we want. So the better way to do this is to do jitter scale. Now this will take a second to calculate depending on your computer and how many points you've got and how much your spacing is. So boom, there we go. All right, so this is like more like a sphere packing type of a thing here. Oh, in fact, we could do it sphere packing like that. And we could, play around with this here. We could add more points in there, things like that. But this is true sphere packing, I should say. And the other one is just jittering. It's just jittering this, and it's I think it's representing this as some sort of a volume here. I'm not 100% sure actually what it's doing there. I should look. Yeah, we're doing VDB from Polygon, and then doing some stuff here. Yeah, that's gonna be what we're doing there, I think. So anyways, all right, so we got those all packed in there nice and tight. Lots of points. We could obviously make these a little bigger if we wanted to. Yeah, sure, whatever. All right, so we've got our Vellum constraints here. I'm gonna do a Vellum pack just to have that, and that's gonna be ready to merge into another stream here. And let's do calculate uniform. We're gonna keep the density, I don't know, maybe we'll go a little, maybe a little heavier than like water of 1,000 density. So let's do like, I don't know, 1250 I don't know. That'll be fine. So there's the mass of those. It's calculating those uniformly across this, and that should be good. Okay, cool. So we've got our grains. So let's also take this sphere and let's think about how we can cut it up. I mean, there's several different ways that you could do it. One way that you could do is do a Voronoi fracture, which is pretty standard. We can put our geometry in here. We can also do a scatter. And let's just take that like so. And all right, so now we got probably too many points here. Yeah, way too many points. So let's force, I don't know, 25, something like that. Right, there's our Voronoi scatter. Okay, so that's fine. We've got our piece attribute. We can view that right here. It's fine. It's not great. It's like kind of blocky and big. So let's think about how we could do this a little bit better, because if you remember, Voronoi is quite literally just taking the distance to this point, right? And it's making an area around it. So you can see that point in the middle there. And if we look here, there's basically an entire piece that's the closest. It's all the primitives that are closest to this point. So, and creating straight lines between them, the boundaries between what domain each point has. Like this is the king of the hill for like this part of it, right? So anyways, so this is a little bit of like it's a quick way to get it. Obviously this is very fast, but you're not getting great edges on this. It's really straight, doesn't feel exactly right. So we can do probably a little better here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually add some normals here, because I'm going to use them in a second and you'll see how that's going to work. But so here's some normals that I've added to these that will transfer onto these points. So now these points have normals, which is good. So let's do this. We're going to do lab instance attributes. So we're going to drop this on here. What this is going to do, which is kind of neat, is this is going to add, this is a newer node that I actually didn't really know about. In fact, I don't know how new it is. It could be a couple versions old. Hi, how's it going, Anil? Thanks for joining the stream tonight. So yeah, I'm not sure exactly how new this node is. It's been probably around for a little bit. I could probably find out real quick, but the cool thing about it is that it's a way to really quickly add your instance attributes that you need, right? We're not going to be doing any variants or anything like that here, so we don't have to worry about that. But so we can kind of leave this alone, but we have these point transforms, right? So what we're going to use is the initial rotation. So we're attempting to use the input n and the up if we wanted to, but right now we just have the n. So you can see the n is this blue axis here. And what we can do is we can add a random spin to these, right? So now that has a 0 to 360 spin. You can see right here. So there they all are. My mouth. I also have a hair in my mouth. There they all are lined up kind of perfectly. And as we add in some random spin, that will allow these to all be at random angles or kind of rotated around those normals. So this is a really nice thing. And what this is actually doing is building an orient attribute, which is the primary method of like instancing geometry. We're going to instance some grids to cut our geometry with. So that's going to be what we do there. So all right, so we've got this instance attribute. We can also do this and randomize the rotation in 3D. However, this really won't give us so much of what we wanted. And this is going to actually change the direction that those blue kind of normal axes are aiming. And so you can see it kind of spins them randomly in 3D. This isn't going to be so useful for us, so we're just going to skip that. We're not going to leave that for right now. So, all right, so we've got our scatter. Let's do a grid here. And I don't know, maybe 50 by 50, something like that. Nothing crazy. Let's add normals to this as well, because we're going to deform it based on those, and that'll be helpful. So there's our normals. Let me turn these off. Great. So let's just do a copy to points here, and we can just shift click both of these. Oh yeah, no problem, man. Thanks. I'm glad you found the stream. Well, hopefully they're helpful videos. They're kind of just they're just kind of stream of thought. So I'm glad you found them. And yeah, if you want any more recommendations for learning Houdini, happy to give them. And Tagma is a great place to look as well if you're looking for great free resources. I'm trying to think of some of the other people. I think John Kuntz has some cool stuff. Mark Fancher, I believe, does some streams as well. So, but you're very welcome. Happy to do it. This is kind of just a fun little labor of love for me. So yeah, so we're doing some Vellum tonight. So hopefully this will be a fun thing for you to learn. If you don't know it already, hope maybe you do. Yeah, and if you have any questions, please let me know. Happy to answer any of your questions you might have, or try to answer them at least. All right, so hi, hey KG, thanks for joining the stream tonight. All right, so what I'm going to do here is just check the size of these. So I have this here, it's copying to points, and I'm just going to change the size of this grid just to see kind of where these are. So, oops, I don't know, let's see. We're just going to do maybe we'll do like 4. I don't know, something where we know it's going to more or less cut it, but it's not going to go crazy. We could also look at it the other way here too, and you can see, yep, that looks like most of those are going to go through. If not, maybe there are too many. So we could always bring them down a little bit to have a little more resolution there, because we don't want to have them like half cut through. That can create some weirdness. So I can just, and I'm middle clicking here on the size to bring up the ladder. That's the name of this thing. So you can see you can go by different increments. Cool. All right, that should be good. All right, so we've got our copy to points here, and what I'm going to use is another fracture. Instead of a Voronoi fracture, let's use a Boolean fracture. And the reason I'm going to use this is this should give us a little bit, well, it's going to cut via surfaces, right? So this is going to have a much different look to it, right? So now each of those planes is kind of cutting this in a different way, right? And what we can do here is we can say RBD exploded view, drag that there, and now we can see all these different pieces. However, I don't want them to be solid because I want them to be filled with grains. You can see here, these are all chunks, right? Because it's kind of chunking this up and acting like this is a solid, which we don't want. So what I can do is come back over here and say treat geometry as surface. And now we just have a surface that's all sliced up. Quite a bit too much, if you ask me, but all right, let me turn this down a little. Maybe we'll do it 15. Get some bigger pieces here. Cool. And all right, we're getting somewhere here. Maybe less. Maybe we'll do like 5. Yeah. Yeah, it's okay. Oh, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to turn the relax iterations down. What this is going to do is change the distribution of these points around here. I'll turn them back up for 1 second. You'll see, oops, that's too high. So if we look at this, right, we've got all of our points here. If we turn the relax iterations up, it's going to smooth out your point distribution. And if you bring it down, they're going to get a little bit more clumpy, which is good because you don't really want it to be scattered evenly across the whole thing. That'll kind of make weird shapes and stuff like that. So the other thing you can do is you can scale the radius of this down so it'll even get less clumpy. So we can just kind of play around with this and see where it looks good. So anyways, let's go to, gosh, I don't know. Let's try 5 maybe. And unfortunately, I don't think this is really going to matter at this point here. Maybe a little bit if we really went down with it. So maybe we'll do something like that. And we can look at this again. And okay, now we're getting some nice kind of big pieces here. So that's looking okay. And what we could also do here is we could change the angles. So we could have them all, this is if they were all going in the same direction, right? They're all kind of cutting in the same, axis more or less, or close to it. And we can kind of just randomly rotate this around, see kind of where we're going with this. So I don't know, maybe something in there is actually kind of interesting. We've got these kind of bands that are going around, and we're going to stitch these all together to make sure that they all kind of are one piece again. And you can see how quick this is. This isn't a long process to like calculate this. Maybe 4 will be a little bit better. Sure, why not? The other thing is we still have these really straight lines, which is not what we want. So what we can do is we can actually noise up these cutting surfaces here. And what I'm going to do is do a mountain. Now there used to be a node called the mountain sop. Now this is just an attribute noise, and the noise is along a vector. So in this case, as we look at these normals that we've kind of made on these copied, sorry, just adjusting my microphone. So as we see these normals, that's the direction in which this noise is going to be applied. So it's going to be applied here in this axis on this one. This one's going to be in this axis, so forth. So so we can add this mountain in, and this is going to start to kind of crunch up those and kind of make them look a little bit more interesting. Now, the other thing I want to do is I want to have these offset based on their based on which copy they are, more or less, because I don't want them to all take the same exact noise based on where they are in space, right? Because you can see here as we offset them, they're all going to kind of be more or less affected similarly by the different pieces here. So what we can do real quick is instead of doing it this way, what we can do is we can just do a for each. There's probably a quicker way of doing this, but I'm just going to do it this way because this I think makes the most sense. So we're just going to add a connectivity attribute here. And what this is going to do is add an attribute onto our geometry here called class. And what we can do is we can visualize that real quick. Let's pull this up here. Here's our visualizer. And let's look at class. And so we can see here that we have different classes. In fact, I'm going to turn this off. A better way of seeing this is actually just going here, clicking on the eye, and clicking on class. That's going to be better colors. It's a little harder to see that. But anyways, so here's our different classes. So there's different classes on each of these connected geometries. And so what this is going to do is go through each of those, loop through them, and we're going to add this mountain based on that. And the last thing I'm going to do is select this. I'm going to create a metadata import node. And what this has created is a few more attributes on this node right here. And you can see here we have the iteration, the number of iterations, and the value. So what I'm going to use is this iteration attribute to help offset this. So I am going to just set this to, I'm going to write detail in here. I'm going to do parentheses, and this brings up the help card. And basically what we're going to do is point this to a surface node. Right here it says detail, surface node, the attribute name, and then the index. So what I'm going to do is the surface node, I'm just going to do this in a string. I'm going to do / slash, because that's going to be going back up a level to look at all the ones around it. I'm just going to type for each. We can see here's the begin one metadata. And that's all we need. That's the node we want. Then I'm going to put a comma and do another quotation and just call this iteration. And then the last one is going to be the attribute index, and it's just a single float, so we don't need to really do too much there. And there we go. So now we have offset 3. Yeah, no problem. Cool. You're looking for some fracture tutorials. Well, there you go. Good. Hopefully you'll see a little bit here that we can learn about. Yeah, there's a lot of different ways that you can fracture stuff in Houdini. One of the ways I can show you in a second here once I get this going. So what this is going to do is just add noise a little bit differently. Hey, Zach, how's it going? Nice to see you again. So, okay, so we've created this little for each loop. Sounds a little scary, but not too bad. Basically what it's doing is it's referencing, there's a reference here between this metadata node. It's creating this iteration, and we're using it right here in the offset. So now we've got those slices. We can do this Boolean fracture, and we can see here, the exploded view for it. And we can see that now these are a little bit more noisy. And as we adjust the amplitude here, we can make them more or less noisy. You know, we can kind of play around with them that way. And we can also change the element size here. So this is going to make it let's just take a look here. You can see. So yeah, obviously that's probably too much amplitude. So we'll bring that down a little bit. And we can change the element size. And this is just going to adjust how big or small that noise is going to be, basically. So let's look here again. Cool. So now we've got a little bit more natural noises there. So this is just going to be for previewing. We don't really need to worry too much about that. But so let's do Vellum cloth. Configure cloth. And I'm just going to shift click both of those and drag them down. Great. So now we've got a cloth that we're creating here. Ooh, that's a little funky. Let's just take a look at that here. Let me see what that looks like. That feels a little, yeah, not happy about that. It's making a really tiny sliver right there. So let's just play around with this and see if we can't get that sliver to go away. Maybe like that. Yep, that feels a lot better. Cool. Okay. All right, so we've got this vellum cloth here, looking good. What we can do is we can visualize the thickness that we've got set here. Why is that not visualizing? That's weird. Not sure why that's not visualizing, but that's okay. All right, so what I'm going to do here, so this is now starting to set up our cloth, and I'm going to mess with these here. I'm going to calculate a more uniform mass, and we can just kind of play with this density here as well. Let me just see what the mass was on these over here, these grain particles. So these are like 0.1. And let's see here. The density is maybe, I don't know. No, not even that. Maybe we'll do like, just kind of play around with this to get it in a good spot. Yeah, that seems good. Maybe we'll try something like that, 25. Great. And normally you would see a thickness here, so I'm not 100% sure why that's not. It would usually show a little visualization here with the thickness, but you know. Let me just pull up the reset viewport thing, see if maybe that's the culprit. Nope. That's weird. Anyways, cool. So we've got our cloth set up here. So what we can do now is we could do a Vellum solver. Drop it down here. Add in a ground position. Hit play. Whoa, 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 whoa. What is going on here? Okay. That is weird. That's because of what I was seeing there with that little thing. Let's put that back to defaults, just make sure it's nothing I'm doing. Nope, doesn't seem like it. What's the error we're getting here? Let's do a little debug. So you can dive into these other networks here. Let's see what this is saying. Number of points in the geometry and constraints do not match. Okay. That's fascinating. Go on. All right. Let me just pull this out of here, see if this is the issue. Could be. I did this before and didn't add that in, and I was like, oh, I should do that next time. Let's just double check and see. All right, I'm going to take my Vellum solver here, just reset it, make sure we're... Nope. It's so weird. What is it doing? That is absolutely bizarre. Oh. I know the problem. I think I know the problem. This should not be wired in here because what this is doing is making extra constraints. So here, this is making constraints between these pieces. So if I highlight this and show this, you'll see that there's constraints inside of here. And this is incorrect. We don't need these constraints. These are nothing. So that would be more if you were using this with RBD, let's just say. So we don't need that. So let's take that out of there. All right, let's go back. There. Okay. Should be, hopefully be okay now. That's why. All right. That's why we weren't seeing the thickness. There's definitely something going on there. I knew it. Okay. So there's our thickness. We can see kind of by these little spheres here. So maybe we'll bring that down a little bit. Like that. Okay. So now we should just have these pieces that will fall to the ground and kind of just fall apart. Yep. Nothing exciting there. Okay. So that's fine. Let's take a look at what else we can do here. So let's do a Vellum constraints. And for this one, so this one's going to be our Vellum cloth. This one we will call maybe Vellum stitch. And let's see here. I think what we want to do is this weld points. Yep. That should be good. That should hold them together. All right. So let's take a look at that. So this is going to be probably a little funky, but it's more or less going to keep those together. And what I'm going to do is just up the sub-steps just a little bit here. So we've got a few more. Great. All right. So now we've got our bag kind of that we're going to use to hold this together. So we need to combine these two streams, right? So we need to take this, stream here with the grains and combine it with the cloth, right? But if you look at this, you might be saying like, well, okay, this doesn't totally make sense. How are we going to merge all three of these together? And that seems like a pain. So there is a nice, easy way to do this. In fact, we can actually cut these here. We don't need those technically because those are for collisions. And we don't have any collisions happening here other than the ground plane. So let's do another Vellum pack. And this was why I had done this previously. So there's that. I'm going to cut this. So now we have two packed geometries here. So this one's packed and it has geometry and constraints. These two inputs here get packed, each one into one primitive. Same thing here, geometry constraints. So what we can do then is we can do a, actually I can show you the quicker way to do this. Click this, shift click that, and hold down Alt, and that'll make a merge node. And so now we have all of our geometry and constraints here. And actually, I forgot that this is a thing. See if this works. I'm not sure if this works or not. I forgot that this is a thing. So let me see. So this is merge packed. Let's see. Let's see what happens here. What's the difference here? Oh, okay. There's the difference. So this is interesting. This one actually puts in the name of the node that's coming into it, which could be helpful in the future. So if we do, let's see, a Vellum unpack here, we should be back to all of the stuff we had before. Let's just see what the difference is here. Might as well do both. See exactly what they do. So this is actually probably the better way of doing this, because we want it to come back to this piece, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all of that. That's all names that we want to use. We have all these point attributes here. If we look at this as well, this is all fine, but now the name of these are actually goofed up. Yep. We don't want to do that. Okay, never mind. That's for packing merged or like packed geometries that aren't simulation stuff, I think, is what this would be for. I have to look into that a little bit more, but anyways, remembered that was a thing. All right. Anyways, so here we go. We've got all of our geometry here, and inside should be all of our spheres. There's, well, points at least, they're spheres. So there we go. We've got our unpack. Let's wire this into the Vellum solver. And then from there, we should have sphere that's holding in all of these little particles and things like that. Now, there are some crazy collisions happening here and things like that. So we want to actually let this thing break open. So, man, why does this thing keep going down? Sorry. All right. So we want to have these stitch constraints breakable. So if we come down here, we can see that there's a breaking threshold that we can give them. And I was playing around with this a little before, so it might be around 1, but we'll see. So there's our sphere. Let's let that go. Fall down. Okay. Oh, you know what? That's right. I need to have the vellum cloth be a little bit more dense. That's right. Because it's a little on the light side. So let's go up by 10 and see how that looks. Yep. Because if you have these really dense things inside of it, it can be causing some weirdness to happen there. There we go. Got some grains spilling out here. Cool. All right, so let's turn down that. Let's turn up this breaking constraint, maybe to 1.25. Let's also get the cloth a little less, give it a little more stretch maybe, just so it can stretch out a little bit more. Stiffness is pretty low, so that's good for the bend. So these are the attributes here. So the bend attributes, the stretch attributes. Yeah, so the density setting, the reason that was like kind of freaking out was because you had these really dense particles inside of this really, really, like, so every point that comes in here, right, has its own, let's look here. So I'm going to, oops, yeah, that's what we want. Let's just look at this. So we have the mass, right? So the density is how you help, it helps you create the mass of the particles, right? So in this case, these are it says right here, is grain, these are 1. So if we go down here, all these 1s are the grains, and then when we come down further, these are all of the regular vellum particles. So if we look at this kind of split here, you can see that, in fact, still, the individual grain particles are much more massive than these other non-grain things. Maybe they're glue constraints, maybe they're stretch, whatever. But you can see here that the mass is a lot lower on them. So when you're, at least this is my experience. I don't know the actual exact mathematics behind it, but what I've noticed is when you have something on like this sphere here, right? That's a really low, way too low of mass for the things inside of it. Let's just say those points can exert a crazy amount of stresses and forces on this very, very light material. And it just starts to break down kind of the realism of it just because the mass is so low. So what I'm doing here is just upping the density a little bit. You can do calculate varying, and what that's going to do is calculate the mass based on how much area or like volume you have there. So you can do these different ways. This maybe will be more accurate. Like I think this is the default. So let's just see what this looks like. I'm not 100% sure there, but yeah, and you can see some of these aren't breaking now, which is fine. Maybe we want that, maybe we don't. You can see that some of these things are like still stitched together. And the grains are coming out. Yeah, unfortunately, we got a little bit of jitteriness there still. sometimes the way to do this is just to up the substeps quite a bit. That can help as well. But basically, like if I think the solver just doesn't like it if it has things that are, um, yeah, exactly. So it's like, yeah, you've got these crazy masses basically that aren't exactly working together properly, and that can just, I think, freak out the solver. So yeah, that's as far as I can tell, that's what's happening there to some extent. We're still having some weirdness there. Let's just keep taking a look at this. I'm going to turn threshold down a little bit just so that breaks a little easier. Um, let's turn the bend down as well so it's not so stiff. Um, all right, let me just turn this down a little bit here, and we can maybe do this a little higher too, a little bit more constraint iteration, see if that helps. Let's keep playing with this a little bit here. So yeah, this is usually, the case, right? You got to kind of play around with different parameters and things like that to get a good simulation to make it kind of do what you want it to. Um, don't like how that is caught there. It's not fun. Is that happening here? Maybe. Interesting. Um, just want to try something here for a second. Let me see if this is any better. If these glue constraints work any better. Let's do that. See if that's any better. I can never remember which one it is. Flip book this so we can actually see it in real time. We've got some weird jittering there. Now that is, I think, because of this not letting go actually, but let's just watch that. Let me see here. Let me turn that up a little bit. Let's turn this down just slightly. Try that again. Now I'd like to see one more thing here. What is that? The question is this particles or is this just my mesh that's freaking out here? No, it looks like it's the mesh. Huh. It's weird. All right, let me try a couple more things here. Turn that up a little bit. It's pretty amazing how different these sims look when you really go, heavy with the substeps in this case. Hmm. So that looks less realistic. Strange. Strange, strange, strange. All right, let's take a look here. So I want to see those constraints to take a look at them so we can see what's going on here. So there's all of our constraints that we made inside of our mesh, right? We can see if there's anything weird going on here. Yep, sure enough, that's doing some weird stuff. In fact, that is really strange. Okay. So let's see here. So I might have gone a little too crazy with this. So let's see here. Let's try that instead. Maybe I just went too crazy with my mass. So strange. It looked so much more active with less substeps. Very strange. All right, let's take a look at this again. Get rid of that. Let's try this again. Yeah, there we go. That's looking a little better. Guess maybe I just went a little crazy with the substeps, maybe too many. All right, let me do one more thing here. I'm just going to make these a little weaker. Other thing I'm going to do is try to add some clumping to these grains so that they get a little bit more interesting looking. So let's go here, and I'm just going to do the attraction weight. Let's just see if we can do, I don't know, see what happens if we double it. See if that clumps these things together a little bit better. Well, you know what we could do, just to see where we're going here. Let's take this merge, and instead of, we'll do this first and just bring these grains in, just to see how this is working here. Yeah, it's a little something. All right, let's see here. So let's try, ooh, that's going to be probably too much. Let's try 5. See how that gets us. think we're getting some clumpiness there. Fine, we'll go up to 10. Let me just make sure that we're actually getting some traction here. That. Ah, there's the problem. The attraction weight was at 0. uh, sure, let's try 1. See how that works. There we go. Now we got something going on here. All right, what I'm going to do is actually give this a little more height. Oh, right. I'm clipping it. So let's do this to 7.5. There we go. Just give it a little more height to fall from. Cool. All right, so now we should be able to do this and add even maybe a little more attraction weight. See how that goes. I like the random little stuff. All right, let's do, I don't know, like just a little more than 1. Cool. All right. So now that we have that, we can now put this back in here. Do Shift R to reorder them. And now we should have some clumpy sand falling out of here. Let's see. Yep. In fact, it didn't nearly come out as much because it's all clumping together. So let's do this. Let's turn down this stitch constraint even more. See if we can't get that to really do something interesting here. Cool. All right, let's see. See if we can't do a Vellum post process. Will that turn these back into points? Not sure, but we can extrude by thickness there. Yeah, okay. So we could do that, but that's getting a little funky. So we're not going to do that. We'll just leave that. What we can do instead, let's see here, we could do... That's always a thing you could do to up your, resolution of it if you wanted to do something like that. Now, unfortunately, I have triangles here, so it's going to be a little funky if I use a Catmull Clark, but anyways, you could do that. All right, instead of this, let's do a split. And if you remember, we had is grain. So what we can do is change this to points. We can say at is grain equal to 1. That'll only give us the grain there. And then on the other side will be our cloth. So here we could maybe do like a sprite. Can we do a sprite, I think? Just to give it a little visual. There we go. That's a smoky one. But what we can do is we can go here and look for texture maybe. I think. No. Here. I think it's here. There is a little sphere sprite. Let's see where it is. If we come down. Oh, that's cool. Splash. There. Sphere matte. Sure. We'll accept that. So this will make a little sprite. That will be those. What? done this before. Why did that not work? That's really weird. Okay. There it is, but that's not the one I was hoping for. I was hoping for the matte one. There we go. Okay. Don't know why that was the case, but anyways. All right, so I can just shift click both of these, merge them back together. And there we go. We've got something to visualize here, so we can at least see what we're working with here. So cool. So Anil, I know you said something in chat about looking at fracture tutorials. So that's kind of interesting. Um, why don't we talk about that for a second, maybe before we move on with some more Vellum stuff. So I'm just going to hide this and let's just do a box. Say sim box RBD, just something simple. Okay, so let's look at how we could fracture this. So we've got this box and we're going to do a match size just to make sure it's on the ground. And we'll do minimum. Cool. Good. Okay, so here's our box. The one really cool thing that we have in Houdini is a thing called material fracture. So we can use the RBD material fracture if you haven't used this before. Takes a second. We'll just let it kind of cook itself here. And this is a way to kind of have preset materials, right? So we've got concrete. We could do wood. Now that's not going to look probably right on a big box like this. What we'd want to do instead would be maybe something like this, right? And let's just do an RBD exploded view just so we can see that properly. So here's like a piece of wood. Maybe if we were fracturing it, maybe I don't know. Maybe we do something like that. So there's like our fractured wood piece, right? But we could do glass as well. So there's like a crazy glass fracture in this case. There you go. And, we can play around with all these different things here with cracks and impact points, how many points we're going to have impacts on, all that kind of stuff. The cracks we can have, you can change a lot of parameters here. So we can enable the chipping if we wanted to. No, probably that wouldn't make sense for glass per se. Let's just turn that off. Probably too small. Yeah, you can adjust the detail size here for cracks and things like that. You can do, here you can adjust the noise for this. So it's going to create maybe a noisier pattern in this glass. There's also, where would it be? Oh, okay. Yeah, that's like how much the impact is spreading. This is going to change frequency here of like the noise and things like that. So there's a lot of different stuff you can do here, but let's look at concrete because that's going to be maybe a little bit more interesting to look at. Let's just set this back to its standard size. In fact, why don't we do this like 5? We'll do it really tall. Cool. Okay, so we've got our material fracture going on here. Maybe we don't scale that so much apart, just a little like that so we can see it. And what we can do is like a ton of different things here. So the concrete is pretty, there's a lot of stuff we can do with it basically. So first of all, you can add different levels of fracture, right? So let's just disable this. We can see the first fracture level right here, right? And then if we add in this second fracture, it's going to fracture each of those pieces again. So in this case, our first fracture has 5 points. The second one has 5 points as well. So we could do this differently, where we could do maybe 10 to start with. So we'll have 10 fractures at first, and then each of those will get fractured 5 times, right? So that is kind of the first concept that you can work with here. So maybe in this case, we'd want to set that back to 5, and this one we could up it even more and maybe have this one be 10. So it's going to crack that into smaller pieces in this case. So that is kind of the primary fracture, but obviously we want, we want something more than that, because our lines are still very straight, kind of like what we were looking at before. It's not really doing what we're hoping to make this kind of concrete look more interesting. So let's go back here. We've got all these flat planes of geometry here throughout this column. So let's go to detail. And what we can do is we can first turn on edge detail. What this is going to do is add in some more interesting edge kind of lines here. You can see right there, that's the difference. So it's adding in these kind of wavy lines to the edges, and we can add some more noise in here if we want it to be much more rough. So maybe, I don't know, maybe we'll do 0.15, something like that. We could make the noise, be longer if we want to, and be a little bit smoother. Or we could come back and make it even more insane. Probably is going to break at a certain point, but you can see, you can kind of control this to your heart's content. So there we go. We've got all these pieces that are starting to fracture here. And what we can then do is add interior detail as well. So each of these is going to take longer and longer to calculate. But what we can see here is now we're getting these interior pieces that are happening here, right? So let me push this back out wider so we can maybe see it a little bit better. And I'm going to turn off show proxy geometry so we can just make sense of that. And I'm going to lower that as well so we can see this a little bit bigger. Cool. All right. So we've got that. Let's just see the difference here. So if we turn this off, it's going to be kind of just smooth through there. It's a little bumpy, but nothing too crazy. Then if we turn the interior detail on, that's going to add even more noise into it. We can add the amplitude up here. It's going to get even crunchier in there. The other thing we can do is turn the frequency down if we want it to be, if we want it to be bigger size noise inside of there. Whoop, went too far there. Went into negatives. Or we could up this and it's going to get even more kind of intense inside there. Right? And what we can do here, is change the detail sizes. So what this should do, I believe, is, make it even more detailed inside of there. So now we're getting these really crunchy details inside. We're getting really kind of high resolution meshes inside of here, right? So we've got all of this stuff going on. But if we look back here, it still is all, there aren't any like pieces missing or anything like that, which is great. We've got a really nice piece of geometry. If we turn off the lines, you can see it almost looks smooth still. So it's really nice fracturing from that standpoint, but we're getting this really kind of intense, crazy thing going on here. So that's good. So the other thing to kind of talk about here, and the thing I turned off before, was this proxy geometry. And so you can see, since we don't want to simulate these crazy bumps here, we actually just have these pieces of geometry, these simplified pieces of geometry that we're going to use for simulation. So if we look at, so here, let's turn back our smooth wire shaded. And let's look at this. Let's do a null, just a couple nulls here to look at what's going on. So this is the normal output here. Oh, we don't want to do that. We'll grab it here. So that's our geometry, right? And then if we look at, that's our constraints, this is going to be our proxy geometry. And you can see that this is straight kind of versions of this, right? So this is the geometry that we're going to be using there, right? So we can also look here just to get a better view of this, maybe. And we can see that, sure enough, this is the geometry that's actually going to get simulated. Now, you have some control over that here. You can do a bunch of different things here to create proxies. You could do this convex decomposition, which is going to basically try to make convex hulls for anything that's starting to get actually concave. It's going to try to split them up into all convex hulls, just because that's quicker for Bullet to solve. So let's see what the difference was there. To be honest, didn't see a huge difference. Yeah, so it's basically, it's adding a decent amount of geometry. So let's take a look at what the pack spheres method does. And there you go. So you could also represent it as packed spheres, and that's going to allow you to represent things that could be concave with spheres. Now it might be less accurate. It's hard. It's kind of hard to say in this case. Let's see what that looks like without doing that, just out of curiosity. Yeah, so you're definitely gonna lose some accuracy there. You're gonna have some volumes that aren't really fully represented by the spheres, but it is a thing that you could do, and it certainly would be a way to calculate that if you have maybe, say, a lot of concavity on your geometry or something to that effect, where this is the only way you could actually represent these objects. So anyways, let's just go back to the regular one. That's fine. Oh, you could also see there too, we could lower the voxel size, and that would help with the sphere packing. Cool. So that detail is really helpful to get those interior elements built. Luckily, you're not going to be using those to simulate with, but it gives you really nice looking geometry. And for the most part, that should work just fine. I just want to change it. Yep. So, the only thing with your noise height is to know that is going to go more or less around these kind of these proxy geometries. If you think about it that way, like this edge detail is going to change how much variation there is on these cutting planes, basically. So, whether or not it's going to go way over this way or way over that way, that's going to be your noise height element. So the higher your noise height is, the more it's going to deviate from this kind of proxy geometry that it starts with, because that's kind of its first cut, right? It does that first, and that's kind of that Voronoi fracture that we were talking about. But then there's a lot of things on top of that it starts to do. So, yeah, so that is more or less the basics of how to use that node. Now, the other thing that's kind of cool is you can do this chipping as well. And what this is going to do is find little like corners and places where elements should chip off of this geometry. And it's going to create these extra little bits here. You can see there's a bunch down there. There's some in here. There's a bunch up there as well. So these are going to add in these little tiny fracturing things. So let's up the chipping ratio just to make some more chips. Might as well. Should make a few more. Calculate. Great. All right. So now we got lots of little chips. So that should be interesting. Let's double check, make sure we're good here. Yep. And those are all of these like really tiny little pieces that have gotten created. So there's RBD exploded view. Great. We can get rid of those. We don't need to have that anymore. So let's just grab an RBD bullet solver, and we can just pop those in there. And great. Collision, ground type, ground plane. Great. We'll just have a ground plane just to see it real quick. This obviously is going to just do nothing. Oh, I know why. Because it actually has constraints in it. I should have mentioned that. So this material fracture is also creating constraints inside of it. So you can see here that we have constraints that hold them all together. So it's not going to fall apart. So let's see. we can do here is, let's see, I think we can just cut this. See if that, I think we won't have any constraints now. Yep, sure enough, there it is. Great. So we've got our sim working, and that's all well and good. Perfect. So now the other thing I was kind of wanting to play with here um, was this guide sim, and I can't remember what needs to go in there. Let me just look at this here because I was looking at some of the old examples for that, and they're pretty fun. Like they're pretty interesting. So I want to play around with that a little bit because I haven't messed with that pretty much ever. Never really needed to do a guide collision. Enable guides, velocity. Okay. Well, let's give this a shot. Just want to see what guide. Oh, there we go. Do an RBD guide setup. Perfect. So what I'm looking at here is just where these exactly need to get wired into. So let's cut those. We're going to just grab these like so. Cool. And then what I can do is actually take this box. Yep. And I'm actually going to just adjust this real quick. So let's make some more axis divisions here so we can bend it. Yeah, that looks good. Cool. It's not going to really change too much with this. It's just going to, it'll fracture relatively similarly. Yep, cool. So now what I want to do is I've got my material fracture here, and I'm going to take a bend. Let's bend this geometry, and I'm just going to set the capture region here. Let's turn on our point snapping. Cool. So what I could do here is just say 0, 0 for my origin. So now, there we go. Cool. Okay. I think that's what I'm going to want to do. Not 100% sure, but let's see. Okay, so let's turn this off. Oop, not happy. What are we losing here? Oh, okay. Okay. So what this is saying to me is it's saying it's recommended to pack the RBD geometry before the guide setup to avoid a time-dependent pack. So what I can do here is I can do an RBD, RBD configure. This is basically a way to just pack your geometry before. So now we have packed fragments here. So this is all good. And let me just make sure that there's nothing I need to add in here. Okay, looks good. Okay. I think that's what I want to do. Let's see. All right. So this is the geometry. This is the constraints. It's the proxy. And then this is going to be the guide geometry. Yep. We'll see. All right. So this one, I'm just going to set this to 0. Turn off the sim for a second. Let's do 72. I'll just animate this over to, I don't know, something like that. And then at 144, no, 240. I'll move it back to the other side. So, yeah, let's see. I don't know. See if that works. Oh, that's right. Gotta enable it. All right, so it said that this target velocity should be a little bit more forgiving, so let's see. Gets a little freaked out when it goes all the way over like that. But the idea is working. Let's see. See if I turn these down a little bit. So the crazy thing, let me see. I'll show you the I don't know if you guys have ever seen these before, but the let me see. I'll pull it up real quick. Let's see. What is that? Sorry, just looking up this thing here. So here is the this is from Houdini 18. Um, this is the little sneak peek that they had done. Um, but you can see here so this is just done by a bend stop. And that's basically what I'm doing right now. That's just like collapsing those two buildings together like that. And that's a really big simulation. And that's actually driven, those two pieces are driven apart by um just by yeah, right there, by the simulation geometry coming apart. So it's actually not completely simulated like top to bottom. There's parts of it that are being driven by it and other parts are kind of flying off. So pretty interesting, I think. So I saw that and I was like, oh, that's so fun. I want to do that. Anyways, let's see here. I'm just gonna do the old flip book. Yeah, it's a little jittery, unfortunately, at the bottom there, but you could probably tweak that and add some stuff in there to make that maybe less. Um, Make it a little less prone to that kind of jitter. Um, Let me see. Um, maybe adding a distance threshold might help so that it doesn't think that it. Yeah. Yeah, that's probably better. Adding in just some like tweaking these thresholds is going to be a way to basically say, don't let it like jitter around like that. Just have them fall apart, basically, because we're really bending these super far. So, it's kind of a ridiculous amount of bend in that case. So, um, yeah, it's pretty fun actually. So instead of that, we could do something like this as well. So let's see here. So instead of a bend, let's turn this off, and then we could do twist. And right, so something from the middle and having it art directable, right? So yeah, you could use this same process to do that, really. Let me think here. Well, first of all, let me just play with this real quick, just because I've got it here. All right, let's do this. Let's do twist, and we'll just go here to like, hey, stop it. Just go to 180 or something like that. And yeah, let's try that. Yeah, so now that's just like twisting apart, basically. I like how jittery those pieces are. Ridiculous. Well, you get the idea. It's not perfect, but it works. It's kind of fun. If you push it too far, it's going to freak out a little. So, yeah, so something like a cookie, right? So, yeah, so what the constraints are doing, or what the guide is doing, is I believe, let me take a look at this again here. What I think that it is doing is that it's actually. That is a good question. I thought I knew what was happening, but now I'm like I'm questioning it. Well, here. Okay, so we can do this and take a look, right? So let's look at this. So this is our RBD configure here, and let's look at our constraint geometry. Let's look at this and take a look at, yeah, I know. Let's look at the constraint geometry on this as well. Let's see what we've got. Yeah, it's not creating any extra constraints. So that's interesting. What is the guide geometry doing? Let's see here. Null. Huh. Okay, so I think what it's doing is when we look at this here, let's go back up. Collision guide. Okay. So basically what it's doing is it's guiding the velocity, it looks like, and the angular velocity. So V and W, both of those attributes. So if you look at this here, it's saying there's a velocity option, which is going to be direct update of those. So what it's doing is it's updating those velocities and things like. So if we do this should even be jitterier, more jittery. This should be even worse looking because it's directly driving those velocities and angular momentum. So it's trying to match it perfectly, but it's hitting those collisions, right? So that's the trouble that we're running into there, is that those collisions are actually, stopping it from getting to that perfect spot that this bend is doing, basically. So that's why that's happening. And what we could do is we could blend that probably down and out of it, right? So we could turn the blend down I don't know, maybe we'll do it half or something. So this should actually be maybe a little more stable because it's trying to guide the velocities, but it's going to be blending a little bit more between them. Yep. Looks a little more stable. I like how that thing's just floating up there. Not super realistic, but hey. And then the target velocity is basically doing a very similar thing where it's saying, update the velocity and the angular velocity, but there's certain drag and air resistance and things like that are happening there to kind of cause it to not be so direct, give it a little bit more ability to kind of be flexible in those constraints, or in those, the way that it's pushing the velocities around. So yeah, so that is what's going on there. So to answer your question, Anil, you could do something like this to guide, a rigid body cookie or something like that, to be able to break apart. That's obviously going to be a little bit different, right? But yeah, let me think about that. Okay, so let's try something maybe a little different here. Let's do a sphere, or a circle. Sorry, not a sphere. Oh, nope, tube. I can't think. All right, so let's do a tube. Let's make a really crummy cookie. By crummy, I mean bad, not like lots of crumbs. So yeah, let's just say we had something really thin like that. Cool. All right. I think the end caps are just gonna be one pot. Yeah, let's not do that. So let's do quite a bit more. Let's do like 64 just to make it nice and circular. And let's do a poly cap. And let's do triangular fan, and we don't need to deform it at all. Yeah, that's probably fine. Maybe that'll be better. I don't know. I don't know what's going to be best for this. I'm not really thinking straight, but all right, let's do a RBD material fracture. Let's do that. And let's all right, so let's just make this be very fractured. Let's do 10 here. Maybe just go crazy and do like 20 there. Sure. Now, in fact, what we could do is we could scatter this from an attribute, which would be maybe more interesting to do. So let's do that. Let's paint an attribute on here. Paint. Let's do density. Do that instead. And Control Shift, excuse me, Control Shift drag is going to allow that. So let's just paint this kind of down the center here. Cool. That's where it's going to break. That worked. All right, so let's just say from volume here, let's go back to the original one. Let's turn this off. Turn this on, scatter from attribute. Density is right there. And so if we want to go crazy with that, there's a whole bunch of pieces right there, right? So it's all going to basically fracture right in the middle, more or less. And then the secondary fracture we could do, it's going to take a second because I did 20 by accident. Well, not accident, but we could do like 5 here. Just let it have a little bit more fracture there. And so now we should have quite a few more down the middle. Fine. Just see if there's any way to adjust this. Oh, that's interesting. I could also do it here. So I could have 5 pieces, but scale it by the piece volume. So smaller pieces aren't going to break up maybe quite as much. Um, cool. Yeah, that's fine. And what we can also see here is we could also look at the constraints if we want to. So there's all the constraints that we've got between these pieces, right? So let me take this and put it on the ground. Um, just that way we don't have to worry about any weird collision-y things happening. And we could bring, hey, stop it. We could bring this up a little bit, just up in the air. So again, it's not going to be colliding with the ground to start with. Cool. All right, so there's that. We can do the RBD configure to pack them all. Make sure they're all packed. Packed fragments, great. Got pieces. Everything's looking good. Oh, that's cool. I didn't realize that you could do that. You could do an exploded scale here to could actually see this. Should actually explode if we have them active. There we go. So those are all active. If they're animated, active, we can see them all here. It's kind of cool. So we could do that there. Easy. All right. So let's. Sorry, just thinking. Let's split this in half, and we're going to use that for our geometry. So instead of doing this bend here, what we can do is let's do this. I'm just going to make sure that this is, oops. So you can see that. This here. Just going to split this guy in half right there. Cool. So let's do a Boolean. I believe is the one I want to use. We'll use this and this. I guess I could have just done it. Oh, jeez. I am not thinking straight. Yeah. That's actually kind of silly. I could just do this instead. Well. How about that instead? turned around here. Oh, these don't line up, do they? Oh, that's why this isn't working. I guess never mind. That's weird. What's happening there? That is bizarre. It's like offset. Okay. Guess I need to. Yep. That's why I need to cut it. Okay. Anyways. So the first one will be a solid, second one will be a surface. That'll cut it. If I do exploded view, should have two solid pieces. Great. Looking good. Let me just make sure that's maybe a little smaller. So these paths, or these, just don't want there to be, quite so few pieces in there. Cool. Great. All right. So we got those. We can do an RBD guide setup. Right. So this is basically capturing it based on what point it's near. So you can see right there, that's capturing those two pieces basically based on that. Okay, so what I can do is I can do maybe I'll do a transform here, and let's just do a connectivity. We could do an assemble. That's also an option. Let's try that instead. I think that'll name these. Piece 0, piece 1. Great. So I'm just going to use that to now say at name equals piece. So yep, perfect. So I'll just set this up there. There. It's weird. It yeah, it's moving my centroid here, or my getting that all goofy. That's all right. I'll just make it work. Just set those back to 0 and 0. No. Just do another transform here. Piece 1. Yeah, hopefully that'll work. Oh, right. Gotta have them in the same spot. Like so. There we go. Now they're captured. Great. So now they should bloop do that. So that's what it's going to try to do. So let's do RBD bullet solver. Let's make sure those are in the right spot. So these, nope, 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 wrong. This one, this one, this one goes there. And then this is the guide geometry. Let's see what happens. Oh, bye. Oh, that's funny. All right, I need a ground plane first of all. Great. And then I need to turn guides on. And let's do velocity. See how that works. I see. Let's see. Let's turn this off. I was thinking that that might do it, but it seems like... Oh, let me try that. Let me try turning that off. I like how it bounces there. Boing. Yeah, I guess. So what it's doing um, is unfortunately because it's moving away. That's like breaking that kind of target constraint, right? Because we have these thresholds here, right? So maybe what we should do instead. Okay, okay, hold on, hold on. I have an idea. Okay. So what I'm going to do is instead of that, I am going to use a box. Let's try this. Yeah, it doesn't want to break. You're right. So the problem is that I'm trying to guide the whole thing. I'm trying to guide the whole thing, right? So that's the problem that I'm running into. So instead of guiding the whole thing, let's see if we can just guide some of it. Okay, turn that off. Thank you. That's one tough cookie. I like that. Good. Good. That's good stuff. All right, let's try this instead. Let's see if that works. All right, so let's do Boolean. And instead of shatter, let's do subtract. This one's going to be a solid. Okay, all right, all right. I like where we're going here. Got those. Let's see what happens. Let me just see how this works. Yep, it's doing something. Okay. Okay. All right, here we go. So I'm saying this one was saying near point. That's not really cutting it for this. So instead of doing near point, we could do probably volume and look at that, right? Like that might work. But near surface seems to be working pretty well. So what we can do here is we can then say, all right, let's make sure it's within the surface, right? So these middle ones aren't going to be controlled there. And let's just set this back. Cool. Okay, that looks good. And then here, I'm just going to check that again because that was the way it was. Let's just do velocity standard here. And let's see what happens. Okay. All right. We're getting somewhere. Cool. So let me just check these constraints, make sure they're breaking. Nope, that's not what I wanted at all. Just a null. Just a null. That's all I wanted. And these are the constraints here. All right, I'm just gonna make these a little quicker. Just to see what that does instead. Okay, cool. Let's... So we got that. I'm just adding a little bit more fracturing in there. Let's see, constraints. So we want the primary strength. All right, so let's take a look at what that strength looks like here. There's our strength. Okay, so that's fine. Maybe we make it a little lower. 2,500. Let's try that. Let me just look at this here because I think we might still be seeing that we don't want this. Let's double check that. Oh, okay. Looks like we didn't have these either, so that's not going to work. All right, so let's try this. Nope. So, Okay. Let's try that. See if this helps at all. I don't know. These neighbor things. What is this? Nope. So the problem we're still dealing with here is that these... So there's our constraints, right? And so as it breaks apart, that's all well and good, right? So we want it to... to stick with these here. I feel like we want those enabled, but they're not breaking. Why are they not breaking? Okay, let's make this really weak. Just want to see what happens. Well, that just breaks right off the bat. That didn't work. Mm-hmm. What happens if I turn the strength down on this? Let's see. Down. Okay, well, instead of that, let's try something different here. Okay, that's good. We have these, right? These things are animated, and that's going to break it apart, whatever. Okay, so instead of trying to do this, let me just pull this out for right now. We can do a couple things here. So let's, first of all, oops. Say animated, and so what I'm going to do is um, I'm going to set some of these actual pieces to be animated, and then see if I can break them apart in the middle. So the ones in the middle won't be animated, and just the outside pieces will be. So let's see here. If I do this, what's that going to do? All right. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to make a couple groups. And this one is going to be the same, kind of the same as these here. So we'll say, oh, I can probably make groups out of this. I can. Cool. All right. So I can do group transfer. I think that works. All right. So let's just turn the distance threshold way down. Sure enough. Okay. That's looking cool. Let's check out the groups here. Okay, so what I'm going to do is instead of doing these as or as primitive groups, um, do an attribute promote here. Go from primitive to point. This is going to make it so type these in. So okay, so I'm promoting these attributes here. I think promoting these groups, I should say. Sorry. Oh, that's right. Doing the wrong thing. Group promote. So used to doing attribute promotes. That's why. All right, group promote. So we're gonna do piece 0, piece 1. Great. Cool. So then we're going to transfer these over. They're now going to be points, point groups. So now I can do this here with point groups. Can make sure piece 0 and piece 1 come over. Then, oh, group promote again. Go back down to, let's see here, where is it? Piece 0, piece 1, and we're going to go from points to primitives, and I'm going to include only elements entirely contained by the original group. So anything that's not, anything that's on the border isn't going to be part of it. So because this is primitives, right, I want to make sure these are all enclosed and not just like random points and stuff like that. I want to make sure all these pieces that are broken up have the all of its parts together, and not just like little elements like primitives here and there or polygons here and there that are that have those. So anyways, now we can do this. We can do an RBD configure. We've got those two groups. We've got piece 0, piece 1. So I'm just going to look at that real quick. I'm just going to say blast. I just want to look at what our groups are here to make sure that they're looking right. Let's see, piece 0. Goodbye. Don't want you on, and don't want that on either. Hmm. That actually doesn't look like it did what I was hoping it would. Um, hmm. Is that doing that? It should. Should be entirely contained. Huh. So what I'm trying to do is get it so that these, I guess I could maybe just select them. I just want just these outside things to be piece 0, piece 1, and I'm going to set those to be set those to just be animated. Hmm. Mhm. This is a fun problem. Thank you for sticking with me. Hopefully, we'll get somewhere interesting by the end here. Okay, let me just check something here, because really all this RBD configure is just setting up some attributes for me. So let me just get rid of these. Those aren't working the way I wanted them to. That's fine. All right, let's look at this. So what this is going to do is affect proxy geometry. And so, yep. Okay, that's all I need to do. I'll just set okay. Now I know that this is the attribute I need to change here, animated. Um and on here there will be a thing. I'm going to turn off the guides. All right. So, looking good. So what I'm going to do is take a group with these, with this geometry there, and we're going to say points, and we're going to do not this, but we're going to do include by bounding regions, bounding object. There we go. Those are all the pieces that will be in that group, and we'll say animated, and do just a point wrangle, something simple. Just say for the group animated at animated equals 1. Perfect. Okay, so those are animated. And then what we can do is actually animate them. So we have these right here. Let's do a point deform. I think should work. Let's try this. Okay, that's pretty close, but I don't want it to move all of those. Oh, well, I guess it doesn't really matter because I'm only saying that those ones are animated, so that might not matter. Let's try it. What the heck? Let's give it a shot. Hmm. Hmm. You just see what each of these is telling it. Well, that's not very helpful. Shows the range, blah, blah, blah. Creates and sets the deforming attribute. Great. Thanks. Oh, guys, that's not helpful. What is it? RBD bullet solver. Let's see if it's here. Oh, well, there's the answer. Should be deforming, not animated. Animated means it's animated at a different level, not at this level. So let's try this. Okay. So instead of, we could just say at deforming equals 1. Let's try that. It sort of did something. It's the wrong direction. Really weird. Huh. That is absolutely bizarre. Let's do one more. Let's do active equals 1. That means they're active. And then for these, we'll also call them at active equals 0. Because we don't want them to be active and we do want them to be deforming. Let's see if that'll work. We're getting somewhere. That's something. Yep. It's something. It's something, all right. All right, let me see here. Interesting. Pin. Hmm. Is that doing it? Why is it doing it that way? Interesting. That's weird. Huh. This one might be stumping me tonight. I mean, not that that's that strange, but it's definitely interesting. I really thought that the guided sim would work, but I guess it makes sense that it doesn't. Um, the fact that this isn't working either is a little strange. What I would think that I could do here is, um, animate something coming in here, right? Um, I've got this fracture, and I was thinking that I could group something ahead of it, ahead of this RBD configure, and then use this grouping system here to basically say, okay, these pieces I want to be static, these pieces I want to be, animated, deforming, basically. Maybe I'm just missing something there. Let's see. Hmm. Let's see if this would work. Let's grab this and this. All right, I'm just going to add this peak on just a little bit. See if this works. Let's see if this works any better. We'll just call this deforming instead. Is it called deforming? Oh, right. That's not actually. That's annoying. Let's see here. What if I did this? Group expand. All right, let's do this. Let's do another group promote because I need this to be primitives. Looks like. All right, so I think this might work. Deforming. We're going to go from points to primitives. There's deforming. Here's group expand. Base group. Deforming. Hey, that looks like that did it. Okay. Maybe now we're in business. Let's see. Um, so let's try this. So let's do. So that's going to be deforming. Let's do. Can I do that? Not deforming? Oh, yeah, that's the wrong one. It's this. Yep. Okay. Excuse me. Cool. That didn't work. Okay. All right. Let's see. Let's see. So what we could do instead is okay. Don't think we need those. Let's grab this. This is the mesh that we're going to deform. That's weird. Let's just do this. Deforming. And the piece attribute is name. Making a bendy cookie. That's really strange. I do not understand that. Let's try this. Great. Hmm. Well, that does not seem to be working properly. Oh, getting somewhere, I think. Hey, how's it going, hero? You've caught us in the middle of trying to break a cookie, and we'll see what happens here. No, it's in Houdini. Good old Houdini. Well, let's see here. I could. Yeah, hopefully it'll be good. I'm just running into some weird issues here, but let's just see what happens. So what I'm going to do is do a split instead of that. Twitch link? You want me to drop the Twitch link into chat? I can do that. There you go. Yeah, no problem. Let's see. Ugh. Nope. 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 Hmm. I'm sure this is something incredibly simple that I'm just totally missing. As I said before, if anybody has any suggestions, I'm always open. I do not know everything about Houdini, so happy to hear from anybody and everybody. Um, all right. So I was gonna once I had this working, I wanted to show something else. Thanks, man. Have a good night. So I was kind of thinking it would be fun to do the debris source. Well, I guess that makes two of us, right? Can't find the solution to it. Yeah. So the problem, the thing that's really confusing to me on this is that it should be that taking some of this and just animating it should work. Now, why some of these things are working slash not working? Oh, what the heck is going on there? That's what I wanted. Okay. Well, let me try this. I mean, I don't think this is gonna work, but might as well try it. It's the same thing as before. That's great. Yeah, I mean, I think I think the way that you're thinking about doing it makes perfect sense. Um, like what you would want to do is basically I don't understand why that's going down instead of up. That literally makes no sense to me. So, I think I think you're right in saying that you would want to basically break two sides apart, right? Um, the trouble is just making sure that the rigid body solver knows that you're doing that, right? Um, and so I think I'm just missing one part of this because I feel like I should be animating it right in here. Like this makes sense to animate it because you don't want to like you don't want to animate it before you're fracturing it because that's not going to make any sense, right? So like um, the problem with that would be um, you would basically be refracturing it all the time, right? You don't want to do that because that would just keep cooking it time after time. So here you have this material fracture, and this is um, now all packed geometry, right? So we have 171 packed fragments there, and the proxy geometry is also 171. So that's exactly the same. I mean, the interesting thing here is what if I did that just out of curiosity and didn't pack it in? No, that's not going to do anything then. Yeah, so Vellum yeah, Vellum is for it's a multi solver, right? So you can do cloth, you can do grains, um, you can do rigids, but it's not the same kind of rigids. Like you can have a rigid body in it, but um, you would really want it to be more like to match a shape rather than like fracturing it. It's not really for like fracturing stuff. Like this is for fracturing. Um, and like in my mind, this is all making sense. Like everything is like I feel like it's like 90% of the way there, right? Like I think what it needs to do is just have the pieces know that they're animated and not active. But for some reason when they're not active, they're not deforming. So that's the confusing thing for me, that I'm missing here. So it's all the old stuff, I think. Um, what is this? Just gonna look through some of these things, make sure I'm not missing anything here. Let me try to just cut these out. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I know. Maybe this is doing something. Okay. Well, that's closer than I've gotten so far. Hmm. Yeah, maybe you need to transfer some data like velocity to activate them. I don't know if that makes sense. Sorry, I was just in the middle of that. Yeah, so I think yes, I think something needs to get transferred over there. I think I'm wondering if this is going to do it because what's happening here now, which is kind of interesting, is excuse me, we have these animated pieces. Maybe it was animated that we want. They're all set to 0 for active. Okay. Let's try this. Let's try this. See what that does. Nope. Don't need to do that. Okay. So what's going on here is that it's creating um, the pack geometry that we want. Basically, it's creating pack geometry and it's animating it. Right. That's why these aren't like deforming like crazy. They're just moving a little bit. So that's good. Um, so it's moving it based on the translation and rotation of these pieces, basically. So that's why this is working a little bit better. Um, Now the question is, how do we get that back? Let's see here. What if I do this? Deforming. Will that come across? Okay, okay, okay. We're getting somewhere. Yeah, Zach, no problem. Have a good night. Yeah, I'm just in too deep now. I gotta get some solution. Have a great evening, man. Okay, let's do deforming. Say not deforming. Set those to active. Hmm. Do one more thing here. Let's see. Group here. We're gonna go from primitives to points. Let's see. There we go. So I'm going to set the deforming. Understand why this. I don't understand. So let's do active 1 for all of them. Then for the okay. Forming. The rest of them will do animated 0. This one will do animated 1. So it should be opposite now. But the constraints are not. Let's see. Let's see if that does it. Okay. Let's just go real crazy with these. So the problem here is that the constraints are just stretching. They're not breaking. So it's actually like pretty close to working right now, but the constraints aren't working. Like it's not trying to hold them together anymore, which is weird. I'm not sure what's going on there. Because now we have this half. So let's see here. Let's see if we can visualize show active. Yep. So we have this geometry right here is active. And that means that this should be simulating, right? Like this should be the part that simulates. And so it's like stuck to this piece of geometry here. But for some reason it's not sticking to this geometry over here, which is weird. Let's see. Okay, that's not doing anything. That's good. It shouldn't be animating the constraints. And that's not animating the constraints. Okay. Let's see. What kind of constraints are these? They are glue. So so if I did this, just did some collision with this or something stupid. Just want to see if this is actually going to fracture. It should. Let's see. I didn't save that. Dummy. Okay. Well, that's working. So why are the constraints not holding it? That is the real question here. Hmm. That is very odd. I don't know. I must be missing something very simple because we've gotten a lot further. So, just to recap, the thing that's really helpful here is that this is definitely what's was the missing link here, more or less, because what I'm able to do here is basically animate these. So when they break apart, they're not touching at all. Yes, right. I think the thing that's confusing there, though, is that, yeah, I see what you're saying. Like, they're not, it's not touching, but you would think that those would break based on distance. Or they, it would actually pull and not just not, it's like they don't exist. You know what I mean? Like if I take a look at these, like they're there, but like why are they stretching? You know what I mean? Those are the constraints. So why are those constraints stretching? Just seems really weird. Wonder if it's this. Let's try that just for kicks. Nope, it's not that. Hmm. Yeah, so I guess the thing that I'm missing here is why this isn't I guess just why it's just kind of pulling apart and not, cuz like the one side is still connected. The other side just isn't. Just really strange. Like this side here is connected, right? These constraints are holding it together. And when those constraints get broken by this ball, they fall off. This side has no constraints because they should be like kind of fighting for this here, right in the middle. And that should start to break it. But the right side in this view is not holding the constraints for some reason. They're simply stretching, which is weird. Like this side isn't stretching at all. And I don't know what's going on there. I wonder if it has to do with this weirdness that's going on there. Let me see here. Try to get, I'm going to take those out of this group. No, that's um it's those pieces right there. All right, so what I need to do is get this element here. So I'm going to start this. Do a group combine, I think. Yeah, okay. That's what I'll do. I will do, just make another group. Just say, yep. So this is going to be remove. We're going to say the base group. Just do 3D geometry. And just do a box selection here. Those pieces are removed. Oop, I'm going to turn off the eye. There we go. So that's going to be remove. Oh, you know what? I think if you try to paste links into the chat in YouTube, it'll freak out. Unfortunately. Hopefully that won't like kick you or anything. I remember somebody mentioned that before. I don't know why, but group deforming. You can try it. I just wanted to let you know that I've heard some people. I don't know if you're on the Discord or not. You could always paste it over there. Um, pieces this. Oh, cool. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, that's Tim. I think he did that. Yeah, I'll have to check that out. See if he has a. That's so weird. Huh. I mean, that's definitely seems more correct now. What's happening? I'm not sure. All right. Well, this will have to be put on hold for the evening. Maybe I'll have to take a look at that video and try again later, but yeah, just getting a little too late for me to keep going. Fortunately, it's 11 p.m. for me, so yeah, well, thank you so much, Anil and Zach and everybody else for chatting and just being a part of the stream tonight. As always, you can find the Discord at HoudiniHangout.com, and there's information about streams and that type of stuff. So yeah, so thank you guys so much for being a part of the stream tonight. Sorry that we weren't able to get to a great spot with it, but hopefully next time I can maybe just finish this up next time I stream. Maybe I'll even be able to stream over the weekend or something. I'll post in Discord and Twitter whenever I'll be streaming. So, yeah, thank you so much, Anil, for the kind words too about everything. Hopefully, all of the stuff is helping. And yeah, as always, check out Intagma. Check out CG Wiki. Matt Estella's site is amazing. Check out all the tutorial sites on our side effects website. That's always a great resource as well. So thank you everybody for joining, and hopefully you learned some good Vellum stuff and learned how to troubleshoot some stuff in RBD. Yeah, so the plan is always Wednesdays for streaming. There's a calendar on HoudiniHangout.com if I am going to be changing it, but Wednesdays now is my day that I'm going to be streaming, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. So yeah, so hopefully that works out well for you wherever you are. And yeah, either way, they'll be live or they'll be available after the fact on Twitch and on YouTube. So thanks, guys, for everything, and hope you all have a great evening. And I'll see you all soon. Bye.